So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. Today is Tuesday, November the 23rd, 2021, and their call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And we are expecting Nene to call in, but Michael, I do not see her number yet, so wait until she pops in. Welcome.
Well, let's say hello and welcome everybody to Mind Shifters Radio. We are honored and delighted that once again we get to entertain this conversation about first century Aramaic forgiveness and all of the corollary tools that go along with this work. Jeannie, do you have the book out there?
No, I don't. The last time I saw it, it was laying in the floor beside of your
must have fallen
table.
off of the table. Oh, it was in the holder. Okay. Cool. Thank you. So let's take a look. We'll wait for Nene to call in, but we'll read a little bit from Why Is This Happening to Me Again? If you have not been part of the radio show before, then we'll just explain that, we've been starting the radio show out this year by reading a few paragraphs from the book Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And what you can do about it. And if you want to read along with us, you want to get a copy of the book, you can do it several different ways. The book is out of print, so we don't have it available for sale, unfortunately. But Amazon, it's been 25 years or so since we published it. But and Amazon and eBay have lots of copies of it all the time, so you can just zap in there and pick up a copy pretty cheaply. And or you can go to our website and download it free. Go to whyagain.org. You can download it free, and there is an unprinted newer version of the book. We've only ever printed one version, and so that's the only one available out there. But we do have an updated. I've done a fair bit of editing on the book, so there's a newer version in audio format, and you can go to our website and look in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see products, and if you click there, you'll see that a download is available. Also, it's available on cassettes, on CD. So lots of ways to get it. So if you're following along, we're on page 148. And we're talking to Richard about the idea of building brain cells. And that, the title of the particular chapter is What is Learning? And we're pointing out that in order for the mind to feed something back to us, we have to have brain cells. We have to have content in the mind already in order for the mind to formulate perception out of it. Which, when you start looking at it, our last chapter was the has-been, awakening from the has-been and recognizing that if it's stored in brain cells, it obviously came from the past. If it's from the past, then it's not a live experience at this moment. And most people are locked into perceptual constructs from content in the mind from the past. And so, this formulates the essence. People who never learn to change their past, never learn to forgive, that is, remove what's in the mind. Forgiveness has nothing to do with letting other people off the hook, but to forgive is to remove from the mind. So if you're having a why is this happening to me again experience, your mind will show you that there's something out there that's happening to you again, but the truth is that content from the past is simply replaying. It gets massaged into all kinds of different forms by our belief systems, by our BS, and by the goals that we hold. But if you want to change what's happening in your life, the geographic cure will never do it. Getting them to change is not going to bring about the result that you want if you're coming to an experience with the same old brain cells. And recognizing that perception is a construct of the mind You want to especially remove the emotionalized content from the past that tends to keep people in loops out of the past. So we're talking about the dedication that it takes, and I offer Richard the thought, the character in the book I'm talking to. It takes patience to build brain cells for deeper awareness. It takes time to integrate the ideas presented in this work and for significant change to take place. Those without the brain cells will often wonder why others get excited when using these tools. I've seen people become impatient with this work because they want all the information now instead of taking the time to go through the learning process. And of course, instead of taking time to go through the forgiveness process. I experienced some frustration myself because I would like to teach this whole process in one exhale. And of course, I kind of lied there when I say that, and this is a refinement that when I wrote the book 25 years ago, I really didn't have. And in fact, if you were in any of my workshops back then, you'll remember when I did Why Is This Happening to Me Again? You know, if I came to your location and I did a week-long series, the top line always remained on the board: deny, suppress, project. And this line is a refinement from an instruction I got that changes that. Now, if you come to one of my workshops for about the last 10 years, the top of the board will not say deny, suppress, project. It will say deny, dissociate, project. Because when we deny, and our definition of denial is when I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's happening inside of me, then I have to hide from myself the root of what's happening inside of me. So I dissociate from it. Once I do that, it's no longer mine to change. I am guaranteed until I find the password. You know, it's kind of like you've got a file and you store it in your computer, you put a password in it, you forget the password. Until you get the password back, that file's not coming back. As long as you're in denial, again, whenever you think or speak as though something outside of you is the cause of something inside of you, you're in denial. And when you're in denial, the true cause of what you're experiencing, you've just locked away from awareness. It's not yours to change anymore. So my lie here, when I say I experience some frustration myself because I would like to teach this whole process in one exhale. Well, you know, if I'm experiencing frustration, I'm experiencing frustration because there's frustration in me. It's got nothing to do with wanting to teach it in one exhale. But that's the goal for me, in me, with which I access my own frustration. When I load a goal, if that goal causes something based in hostility or fear to be used by the mind, then I'm living out of corrupt data. So if I were to say this accurately, if I were to change the language to represent and to give my mind permission to show me the truth, I would say that frustration comes up for me when I set a goal in my mind to teach the whole process in one exhale, and people want it that way. So recognizing that my frustration is not about not being able to teach it in one exhale, it's about the fact that there's frustration in me. So whenever we have a because, I'm enraged because, I'm sad because, I'm hurting because, all of that comes under the title of denial. And denial means I have to hide the cause. Now, the password to getting to the cause and changing it is forgiveness. It's the technology with which you access what you've dissociated from. And so, when I realize that I can't teach this work in this whole body of work in one exhale, frustration comes up for me. And I'm willing to heal my frustration. That's my work to do. It would be wonderful if people could have all the understanding and tools in usable form all at once. Boy, it would be so nice to just be able to knight somebody with it. But my experience is that if you're going to come to this level of understanding as a conscious co-creator in your life, that it takes 5 to 10 years of dedicated work to really delete the false content and build brain cells for what creatorship really looks like. And people say, well, I don't want to take 5 to 10. Well, you know, when you realize that your destiny is to be a creator, sooner or later you got to go there. Like, what else is there to do? The alternative is to keep creating the same old "why is this happening to me again" experience. So yes, it would be wonderful just to be able to ignite people with understanding. They go, oh, okay, so now I understand brain cells, past, denial, dissociation, projection. But it's a process. And sadly, a lot of people won't hang around long enough to build the brain cells for it. And or because what we've dissociated from tends to be content that holds pain, most people don't want to go. Don't make me look. It's one of the basic messages that we get from people. So one of the blocks that tends to slow the process of learning is the conflicting realities that people have in their minds about words. The way words are used plays an important part in building brain cells. A word may be understood in various ways and may be hooked into a variety of realities individual to each mind. There are agreed upon meanings that seem to be inherent in words, but the only meaning a word has is the reality it brings up in the individual's brain cell structure. In other words, what do you have brain cells for? And, in any given event, there's an actuality. There's what actually happened, and then everybody who observes, unless they're truly living in the present, observes through a construct of their minds. And the construct, their perceptual, the perceptual output of their mind is their reality. So in each case, based in one actuality, if you've got two observers, there are two realities. If you've got four, there are four. If you've got 8,000 observers, there are going to be 8,000 different realities, because no two people have exactly the same brain cell structures. So there are agreed upon meanings that seem to be inherent in words, but the only meaning a word has is the reality it brings up in the individual's brain cell structure. Just because people agree on a definition does not mean the word itself holds that or any meaning. So we might agree on it, but the word itself is just a flapping of a little piece of skin in your throat. The fact is, word is a sound we make up that come to some level of agreement has a meaning, but the only meaning that's really relevant for any given word is what fires in an individual's brain cell structure. And so Richard replies, well, I can see, Michael, that just keeping clear on the concepts of reality and actuality will take time for me. But I'm up for the challenge. I can see it's going to involve unlearning old habits or old thinking and ingrained behaviors. It's time for me to deal with the things that haven't worked in my life. I just need to get past the feelings that overwhelm me when I think about how much work I need to do. And for those whose experience of life, especially with their power person, have included overwhelm, then that's going to be part of the healing process. Whatever content is in brain cells, whatever's gone on in the mind from the past, is going to represent itself, usually in many different ways. And as I realize that my reality is a unique construct of my own mind, and I have the power to change it. If it's based in hostility or fear, I have the power to recognize that this content distorts my perceptual construct and gives me information that is not contained in the actuality of the experience. And when I project content, and we live in a culture that generally tells us that projection is taking something that's inside of us and putting it outside of us. But projection is actually taking content that's inside of us and making pictures of it in our mind, constructing a world of pictures, of realities. That's projection. So the mind has this unique capability, and that is it turns thoughts into pictures. It takes digital information, and whatever that information is, that will be turned into pictures in the mind. So people see all kinds of things that never happened out there, but it's happening inside of them because that's the brain cell content. So you take, a signal coming into a TV set, and if the signal's a lousy signal, there's lots of noise, there's interference, then the picture on the screen is going to be snowy, blurry, flippy, crazy. What's going to happen? Now I can put a picture right beside it, and if there's no interference with the signal, I've got a perfect picture. Well, if I have no distorting information inside of me, that is, nothing based in hostility or fear, no corrupt data, then what happens is my mind will give me pictures, constructs about what happened in the actuality that will at least be accurate. And that's a big step up from where most people live. But it's still not life, because a picture from the past based in data that is true and accurate about what happened in the present is still a picture based in data from the past that is obviously not alive. It's not a live present moment experience. And we are designed to have, from moment to moment to moment, a live present moment experience where we are available to the actuality, not stuck in the routine realities that the mind gives us, and stuck in the self that is a product of the mind, the self that most people think that they are. You go back and you listen to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, and he says, in order for you to live, you've got to die. Well, what does that mean? I have to, fall over dead? No. It means that if your realities about yourself come from experiences based in hostility and fear, corrupt data, then you're going to have a corrupted image of yourself. The truth about you is not going to be available to you. Forgiveness removes that corrupt data, and then the self that was never true will disappear from the perceptual constructs of the mind, and it will make room for the experience of ourselves as who we truly are. And if you hold a newborn child, you know exactly who the child is, and you know exactly who you are. Because when you get to that essence of the newborn, the truth is it's based in love. It's what we are. And so that's the upshot and the vision, the goal of doing this work. I should say, actually more correctly, the purpose of doing this work is to clean up the past, to delete the self that never was, that appears to be, and to make room for who we are, to really, truly enter into our physiology and into the world. And so that's where we're going with this work. And Miss Jeannie, do we have Miss Nene with us yet?
We do not. I'm going to text her and see what's going on there.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of strange. I was just talking to her just a little while ago, and she was on it to call in at 1 o'clock. I'm sending her a WhatsApp message. So I just sent that to her, so we'll see. Maybe something's come up for her. And beyond that, the thought comes, I was talking to someone just a day or two ago, and this person's a minister, and he's getting on in years, and he actually first made contact with this work, almost probably 37 or 38 years ago in West Palm Beach. And he's kind of toyed around with it all these years. Every 2 or 3 or 5 years I'll hear from him and we'll have a conversation. Or I've spoken at his church in the past, and he came to the workshops. But unfortunately never really dug in to do the work. And we were talking about he's having some health challenges. And the challenge that he has is with balance. And he's finding, because of some brain anomalies, that, just unexpectedly he falls over and, knocks things down, and it's making life really difficult for him. And 2 things that I want to share about this is that, one is we're talking and we're processing this. We're stepping into where some forgiveness work might be, what he might want to do there. And, you look at the ancient scriptures, they talk about ask and you receive. And this comes in the category of be careful what you ask for. Because he's now a little older and, getting near retirement. And he had a plan where he was not ever going to retire. And he described what his vision was for moving toward the end of his life. And his words were, I was planning to be in the pulpit until I fell down, meaning fell down dead, till the end of his life without retiring. And I was like, I invite you to step back and take a look at what you just said. Oh, what do you mean? Well, did you hear what you just said? Well, yeah, I was going to be in the pulpit until I fell down. Do you notice what's happening to you now? What your health challenge is? Oh my God, I'm falling down. That's, whew. And I say this to hopefully open the space to inspire people to pick up the tools and use them. Because for this gentleman, he's kind of danced around the tools over the years, but never really gotten committed, never really done worksheets and done his work. And now that his brain is damaged, he's got physical damage going on, so-called physical. He's like, oh, man, I want to do this. I need to do this. I'm going to do that work. And, it's like, well, the time to do it would have been 30 years ago, 38 years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago. It's a whole lot harder to climb the mountain when you're almost down to the very bottom with health challenges. And my offering is the teachings of Yeshua from the first century Aramaic are the most profound and most powerful healthcare support system you'll ever find, and it's free. It is just so profoundly impactful if you use it. But you've got to use it. Knowing about it doesn't do its job. So if this is making sense to you and you want to use the tools, use them now rather than when there's crisis and you go, oh, now my back's against the wall, now I have to use them, because the vitality level isn't there at that stage in someone's life, and the chances of them really doing it are, start to get slim. And then the second category that I brought this topic up around is to be careful what you ask for. If you listen to Yeshua, he says the power of life and death is in our words. We can set our lives up in whatever direction we want to go. And when you listen to his words, and it's like he just, kind of coincidentally, almost accidentally spoke those words, but it was like, yeah, that's been what I've said to people. That's what I want to do. Be in the pulpit till I fall down. He reminded me of another really, I could give you 24 examples from over the years, but probably the other most profound one where somebody asked for and got what they wanted, or what they asked for. And in this case, I don't know, maybe it was what this guy really wanted, but we were out in Edmonds, California, Washington State maybe, and there was a doctor there who we became friends with. We'd been at his center several times, and we actually stayed with him. And he had a son that was into motorcycles and fixing motorcycles, and it was someone we would talk to every once in a while. I called him one day, and I was just devastated. My son was killed in an accident with a Mack truck, and he was just devastated. And after they had the funeral service, we talked, and he shared that they lived in the same town all their lives, and that several of his friends from his early life, from high school and such, were at the memorial service, and one of his friends brought a copy of a story that he had written when he was in high school. I mean, this kid in high school had a vision for his life. And the shock of it, when this friend heard what had happened, caused him to go back, and I don't have any idea why he still had a copy of this story from high school. This guy was in his 50s. But he had written a vision for his life about how he loved motorcycles in high school, and he wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic, which he became, and he wanted to ride motorcycles. And then he said, I want to live until, and his words in the story that he wrote in high school were, until I'm sieved through a radiator of a Mack truck. He was on his motorcycle, and he had a collision with a Mack truck 30-some years later. Power of life and death is in our words. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful where you allow your mind to go. The Greeks had this piece of the puzzle accurately. They said, guard the portals of the mind. Be careful what you allow in there. And because thoughts, when we get into the cell biologist laboratory, well, let me step back. First of all, if you go to the opening words in the book of John, where we're told it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. In Aramaic, that's not what it says. In Aramaic, it says, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. And what the cell biologists are now telling us is that when you think a thought, that thought literally becomes a molecule in your body. It's called a neuropeptide. The neuropeptide circulates around in your cellular structure until it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches, and it lands on the receptor site. When it lands on the receptor site, the cell inserts itself, the molecule, inserts itself in the cell and becomes, quote-unquote, chemistry. If we were looking from inside the cell, we'd say, oh, look, here's some new chemistry coming into the cell. So the neuropeptide is a state of organized energy that shows up as a chemical, carrying the signature of the thought that set it in place. Mind energy becomes flesh. And in that, when you recognize it, is our creatorship. So when I recognize myself as a creator, and I see that my creation is going off the rails, rather than, trying to find somebody else to blame and putting my energy into a place where it's totally wasted in trying to change them, if I come back to myself. I actually shared this last night with a friend of mine who I was talking to. I was driving last night and talking to a friend who's a parent educator. And it was on my mind because I just had this conversation with this other friend, this minister, earlier in the day. And she shared that there was a point. She's a physical therapist as well as a parent educator. And she shared that several years ago, when she was doing more physical therapy, there was a particular hospital that she worked at, and the nurses just, railed on her. You're in our way. Get out of here. We don't want anything to do with you. We don't want you in here. These patients don't need this. And she had found herself always kind of skulking away and self-deprecating. It's like, oh, I guess I'm just not good enough type of thing. And she shared that she did some worksheets around that and realized that it was a message from her power person and was able to change that dynamic, was able to heal that. And she said, when there was a shift that happened as I'm doing worksheets around this, and I went into the same patient, the same hospital, the same nurses who were rejecting me, and she said there was still rejection there, but all of a sudden I had a whole new mind to work with. Once I resolved that part of me that was self-deprecating, I could see kinds of other possibilities. And instead of just, oh, well, okay, I'll leave and not do the job I'm here to do, she said I could see that these nurses were in overwhelm. It wasn't about me personally, although I'd taken it personally. It was just they were in overwhelm and they had things to do. And it was an older patient, and it was a patient that needed to get to a bath, to get out of bed, help him get out. And instead of skulking away like, there's something wrong with me, she said I could see that, possibilities. Her perception all of a sudden was possibilities for support. And the nurses who were, shushing her and pushing her out the door, she said, well, I can see that what you want to do, and, I can make this part of this man's therapy session, getting him up and out of bed and effectively getting him into the shower and getting a shower. And so all of a sudden, instead of rejection, which her mind took it as, and leaving, all of a sudden she saw different possibilities, was able to communicate differently, and became an acceptable part of the team in this person's care. So the energetic patterns with which we ask is how we get to receive. Really important. And I'm just going to check with Jeannie. I've got another piece of that puzzle I'll throw in if we haven't heard from Nene yet. Is she on the line, Jeannie?
She typed in the chat room. I told her I would call her and do a conference call. She said that her phone is telling her that the dial-in number is no longer in her plan. So she's on the phone now with her Metro PCS trying to get that straightened out. And I said, well, let me know if you want me to call you. So I haven't heard back from her.
Let me see if I have a different number. We've seen that before with what was the service we had back a while ago? Anyway, they had the same thing. They charged extra for it because apparently Blog Talk charges something like a penny a minute to phone services. So.
Yeah, she just texted me and said, apologies, trying to solve the problem, cannot access the show's number. So let me see if I can call her. She hasn't said, she may still be talking to them, but I'll try to call her and conference her in.
Okay.
So let me try that.
Technology. So while Jeannie's seeing what she can do there, let me share this one other story quickly about be careful what you ask for and how this energy system works. Back in the early days of doing this work, one of the things I did is I would keynote at a conference called Global Sciences. And one year did the keynote address, and one of the presenters at the conference was Marcel Vogel, who was at that point a 23-year senior scientist from IBM. This guy was just a genius mind. He was actually the only non-degreed scientist that IBM ever had on their staff. And the reason he didn't have a degree is because nobody could teach him anything. At 11, he invented chemical light, mixing two chemicals to produce light. And if you go to a football game today, that's Marcel's technology, that you buy a light stick, it's a plastic tube, and inside of it there are two glass tubes, and you break the two glass tubes, you bend it, and they break, and the chemicals mix, and the stick lights up for, several hours, whatever. And at the age of 11, Marcel invented that, and his family did not have the money for a lawyer to patent it, so he patented it himself at 11. So if you have a computer that you use, the reason your computer works is because while he was working for IBM, Marcel Vogel invented the magnetic coating that allows your hard drive to store information. That's the kind of mind Marcel had, and he brought with him and presented a camera called a Delaware camera, and the Delaware camera is a unique camera in that between the aperture, normally you click the button on the camera and the aperture opens and light comes in and it's registered on a photographic plate. Well, in between the aperture and the photographic plate, there's a tuning mechanism on the Delaware camera. So you have to attune that tuner to whatever frequencies are present in the environment in order for the camera to see them. One of the things Marcel, and this was the point of his presentation of the camera, was that he was able to take literally a picture of the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought. So every energy that moves, by definition, energy is motion, and everything that moves creates waves. I throw a rock in a pond, and the movement of the water creates, we can watch that wave. Well, we don't have a visual receptor that works in the realm of mind energy, but it's no different. When I fire brain cells, there's activity, and that activity or that motion creates an energy wave, and Marcel was able to take a picture of that energy wave. So there were, back in the early days at Heartland, first year or so, it was a local family that we had befriended, and they asked if we would do a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop for the family. It was like, yeah, we're here. They were coming and helping us to do some things, so sure, we'd love to. They were learning it, and they wanted to share it with family. So the father and mother of this couple, of the woman of this couple, came to that workshop. And when we got to the point of doing the worksheet, this fellow had nothing. He was like, I don't have anything to do worksheets on. He was kind of a crusty sort of guy. He was in his 70s. He was a local farmer. And if you know anything about the Ozarks, they're pretty hilly. And so he had nothing to do a worksheet on. So his daughter said, well, Dad, you're always complaining about Betsy. Why don't you do a worksheet on Betsy? Oh, the story I find out is that Betsy is his cow, or one of his cows. And especially in the winter at the Ozark Hills, if your cow doesn't come to the barn door for milking, it's tough. It's a lot of work to do to get that cow. So he shares with us, or she says, well, why don't you do that? And he ends up sharing the story of, every time he goes to milk, Betsy's somewhere else on the property and won't come to the barn. And he shared that, at one point he put a bell on her so he'd be able to track her better because it's hills and brush. And he literally said she'd go and hide behind in the trees. He wouldn't be able to find her. So Jim, that's his name, Jim that does a worksheet on Betsy. When he gets to canceling the goal for the cow to be there when it's time to milk, and remember that when you cancel the goal, the perceptual construct of your mind collapses and gives you access to what underlies it. All of a sudden, Jim becomes very emotional. He remembers, first time he's put the two and two together, that when he was a kid, his personal cow was named Betsy. He named this cow the same name. And he was an horrendously abused child and shared how very young, like 5, 6 years of age, Betsy was his best friend, his only friend. He lived on a farm. His father was extremely physically abusive, and after he'd get a beating, he'd go out, and the words he used, he said, I'd just hang on Betsy's neck, and I'd tell Betsy what happened. And it was his friend, his solace. It was his only escape from a pretty tough life. Well, he wanted to share that Betsy was getting older, And he's got an older brother who cons him, that's his memory of it, into trading Betsy for whatever, I don't even remember what it was, but he ended up giving the cow. Now, the reason the brother wanted the cow was because the cow was getting older and was getting to the point where it was more trouble than it was worth to him. And so he conned his younger brother into trading him for something that the kid wanted, the cow, and he immediately took the cow and sent it off to the glue factory or to the butcher shop. And so he touches into being a very young boy who has now sold his friend into death, had his friend murdered. That's how he recalled this, and with great emotional pain and trauma. So he worked on and processed through that pain and that memory. I got a very excited phone call from him the next day. He said, well, I had to leave to go home and milk. And when I got to the barn door to milk, Betsy was standing at the door. And this morning when I went to milk, he was at the afternoon, evening milking, and then in the morning he said, Betsy's at the door. Well, from that point forward, he never had to chase Betsy again. Betsy was always at the door to be milked. They'd say, well, how could that be? Well, I would explain it as he's got a painful reality in his mind. He's not even aware that he named this cow the same name as the cow he had when he was a young boy. And he's holding an energetic pattern of, I killed my best friend Betsy by, he didn't know what his brother was going to do. He just, he had something he wanted and he got it, and his brother got the cow and off to the market the cow went. That removed, remember forgiveness is removal, that removed from his structure means he'd no longer be sending out a message that I think we could fairly safely assume is, if you come around me, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to have you killed. And Betsy, this is a period of years. Betsy doesn't come to the barn door, and on that day, that changed. And from then on in, he shared with us that Betsy was always at the barn door at milking time. When you realize how powerful we are as creators, how deeply energetically our creative process reaches into this world and the impact it has. Take those 3 examples that we just shared. The man who says, I was planning to be in the pulpit till I fell down, and here he is. Perhaps years from passing, he had meant, I'm going to die, standing in the pulpit. And I was okay with him. And what's he doing? He's falling down. Be careful what you ask for. And so, Miss Jeannie?
I tried to call Nene, and I got her voicemail, so that must mean she's still on the other line.
Okay. Yeah, well, she's not going to resolve with him at any time soon, I don't think so. Let me just send her a quick text.
And I sent her a text and told her I'd call her, but then when I called, it just went to voicemail. So.
We've been communicating on WhatsApp, so I'm sending her a message on WhatsApp. So I'll just send her a note saying, answer your call.
So while you're doing that, I'll let everybody know that I am now working with India to get the app updated. Lots of changes. There's going to be, like right now we have the current 7-step and the abbreviated worksheet and the Drag-On Klingon game and the commitments. We're going to have an events button so that you can click that and it will take you to where, we list our events on the website and what's going on. There's going to be a more button, and when you click that, it'll take you to the website, and there'll be a whole list of things just information, more worksheets, all the different worksheets that we have. Then there's a button that says send us your questions now. And when you click that, you give us your name, your email, and write your question. And then we will respond to you, and it actually says this in the app, that we will, let's see how it's worded. All questions will be addressed anonymously on the live radio show, and we will respond to you via email, giving you the date and time of the show where we answer your questions, and then a send button. And when they hit send, it will send us that question, but then it'll also take them straight back to whatever page they were on in the app. And so that'll be
that'll
pretty
be
cool.
floating on each page in the app, so that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. And then at the bottom of it, there'll be a button, listen to the Mind Shifters radio show. The information's already down there, but if you click that button, it will take you to our website where it will tell you, other ways that you can, whether it's by the archives or, however. But anyway, that's underway. They say hopefully within a week they'll have it complete. And if you would like to financially support us in that, it's going to cost $750 to get that redone. But that's some major changes in it.
Yeah, actually, it's not an update, honey. That's a big upgrade. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, really.
I'm wondering if on the page where people ask questions, there could also be a check mark that would automatically add them to the mailing list if they want to be added, that they could check it and get on our mailing list. So that might be, and if you're out there and you're not getting our newsletter and you want to be on our mailing list, go to our website, whyagain.org, and down at the bottom of the page, there's a link there that you can sign up. With all the anti-spam regulations and such, we can't just sign you up. You have to sign up, and then they'll send you an email and confirm it. So maybe we could put that in there. I don't know. And if we could, make it easier for people to link to our radio show and to our newsletter. Well, I guess we're going to miss getting to talk with Nene. So is there anybody else out there in the phone queue with a thought for us? Our calling number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581. It's 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. And then if you have a question, you just push 1. And that raises a hand in the phone queue, and we'll be having a conversation. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? If you have any questions about the app, about the use of the tools, we're here to support you. If you're not using the tools, you can go to our website, whyagain.org. And in the upper left-hand corner of the page, you can click a link that says Start Here. And if you click that Start Here link, that will open a whole series of links that will walk you through literally 35 years of developing this, well, no more than that, 40 years of developing this technology from the Aramaic. 50 years overall in developing the whole body of work, but specifically the forgiveness technology of the first century Aramaic language. And you can, of course, if you want to access our app, you can go to your app store and type in the words Heartland, one word, Heartland. Second word is Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. If you type that in, you're looking at the world's only forgiveness app. And it's pretty sweet, pretty powerful. Thank you for all the hundreds of hours you've put into working on that, Jeannie. And this new upgrade is, it's going to be cool that people can they're in the middle of their, doing a worksheet. The question comes up, the link's floating right there on the page. You can click it and ask a question. And then we'll inform you. We'll, if you can't be on a particular show, we'll drop you back an email that says, we talked about that on Tuesday's show. Here's the link. And if you happen to listen to anything in the archives of the radio show, you can go to whyagain.org, and if you scroll down the page, you'll see a microphone. You click on that microphone, and you can just drill down into those links, and it'll take you right to any one of, something like 3,500 shows or so, 3,500 hours of shows from the last 10 years. And so if you happen to listen to a show where we don't have any notes on it yet, you know, it was kind of later in the process that Jeannie started, you know, earlier we were on the road and it was difficult to do, so some of the early shows don't have any notes in them. But if you listen to a show and there's something that particularly clicks for you, if you wouldn't mind, if there are not notes, just dropping Jeannie a note with the date of the show and such, and a brief set of notes, you know, what was there, that will help other people to upgrade, you know, to the database is searchable and can look for things by topic and such. So it would be very much appreciated support. And again, as Jeannie says, if you'd like to help support the funding of taking the app to the next level, that would be nice. We did have a request from Julie Haversick last week. She's got someone coming in to do a bunch of work on the Heartland property with, you know, trees needing trimmed and taken down and leaves falling and grass growing and all the stuff that it takes with Heartland being closed. Of course, it's at this point nothing but an expense. And so if you'd like to help us with that, that would be awesome. You know, we do the best we can to deliver everything we can with no requirement for money. And while we do as much as we can free, we haven't figured out how to do it all for nothing yet. And so if you have benefited from this work and you'd like to offer support, and if you just go to the website, whyagain.org, there's a link that says donate down towards the bottom, and you can click that link and you can send us and if you know us and we're friends type thing, then you can click for friends and family. And PayPal doesn't take anything off the top. It's a PayPal link. You don't have to have a PayPal account to do it. You click on it and it takes you in, and you can just do it with a credit card, or if you've got a PayPal account, you can do it from PayPal. But if you click for friends and family, then PayPal doesn't even take anything off the top. Otherwise, they take, I don't know, 3 or 4%, whatever it is. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? We've got about 8 minutes left. And I would rather continue the show, and it's time for dialogue. We need some input from somebody. So if you're out there in listener land, what's on your mind? How can we support you? 563-999-3581, push 1, and we'll be having a conversation. And all is quiet out there, Jeannie?
Yeah, we're down to 6 minutes, so we have time for a quick question if someone presses 1.
Yeah, we have time for a 6-minute question.
And the switchboard flickered, so I don't know if Ann put her hand up again or not. She was talking to Dr. Kim, so I'm going to turn on her microphone. Ann, did you press 1 again?
No, but I was thinking about you.
Oh, well, we'll say hello at least and happy Thanksgiving. Hope that, your Holy Day season is one that's safe and secure and, paying attention to what's going on around us with COVID and all, that everybody that's listening is safe, and that step into that gratitude space is a pretty powerful place to be.
Yes, and I have done a lot of practicing that, and I listened to Dr. Kim's show earlier, which was just really helpful to remind me of all the things that, the tools he was working with Dahlia. I'm up in South Carolina, and maybe on the next time, I don't know you're not that far away from me, and I'm just outside Columbia. Are you?
Right. Well, we're in Bristol, Virginia. So you're in Columbia, South Carolina?
Yeah, just outside of it, Camden, which is like southeast of Columbia.
Is that where your daughter is now?
Yeah, they, out of all the trials and errors of a couple of other places down in Florida, now they are bought and closed and are in. She's still finishing up a contract in Florida, but the son-in-law got on with the fire department here, which is a dream of his. Yeah, he'd been volunteering. He was volunteer at up in Michigan before, so had years from that. But anyway, So I'm here,
Well,
and
Columbia's
I'm
about 190 miles.
That's
okay.
no, Columbia,
All right.
South
Well, then that
Carolina is no, Columbia, South Carolina is 256 miles.
Okay,
well,
but I'm like southeast of that. Anyway, I'm coming up again because there's this transition time, because as a firefighter, he's on 24 hours and you don't leave. And so they got dogs, of course, and then she won't be there. So they're just one day, but I'm going to come back up. My dealership gives me 2 weeks free rental. Did the challenge coming up with the other person. Was not
nice.
Was not fun because I couldn't find the charging stations. But anyway, I'm going to come back up, and I have it for 2 weeks. I won't be able to stay 2 weeks, but you're not that far away, it doesn't sound like. So
no.
I'll see what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think the 191 miles is as the crow flies, and then when you put it in as so it's more like 230,
right.
Jeannie?
Well, I went off of it. It's 256
anyway.
miles.
56.
Okay.
Yeah. 256, right. Yeah.
Right. But that's
cool.
okay. So we'll see. I don't know what God has when I come back up, whether I stay for a while and then, but I was going to go a little bit further, depending on who I can get to cover me in the sound room at my church. So,
right.
We'll see. We'll see what God has.
Well, tell Elizabeth we said hello and send our love and best wishes for their new residence and new home. And I haven't met her husband yet, but we'll send a hello to him as well. And that hope that the home is a wonderful, community and home for them. That's awesome.
Yes. It's a smaller community outside Lugoff and Kansas. Anyway, my practicing is because son-in-law's mom is here as well, and so I'm learning her personalities and being around her more. And she has admittedly said she is a control freak. Yes. She is a believer
really?
as well. So, yeah.
You mean you're getting to learn forgiveness again?
I know, right? Darn.
More lessons?
I know. But I am smiling now because I was just reminded of all the tools and all the things I needed to hear one more time with Dr. Tim. And so then, and I love listening to you guys and, your positivity too. So as the leaves fall one more time from the raked grass, I can smile. Anyway. That's great. So thank you so much for the show and continued support, and we'll see what it has, and I'll give you guys a shout. So blessings. I'm going to ask you.
Cool. As you mentioned, leaves, we've come into a whole new appreciation of leaves in that we're building soil in our garden. The soil here is pure clay, and so we've been doing a lot of composting of leaves and grass and all kinds of things to build our soil, and our garden's been doing really well. We're actually still eating, it's 21 degrees last night, and it stayed up at 34 in the greenhouse. So our food supply is still growing and doing well, and we're blessed. Appreciate the leaves falling. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We hope you have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. The world needs it. You can give it. Thanks for joining us. Blessings. Bye-bye.